An armed thug walked up to a royal guard, swinging a heavy metal chain. The crowd watched in fear, knowing something bad was about to happen. But in just seconds, everyone's jaw dropped at what the royal guard did next. But before we continue, let us know in the comments below where you're watching from. Your responses always make our videos more special. It was a bright summer afternoon at Buckingham Palace. The famous palace stood tall and proud against the blue London sky. Hundreds of tourists filled the grounds, their excited voices filling the air as they took pictures and videos of everything around them. Children pointed at the palace windows, wondering if they might catch a glimpse of the royal family. Parents checked their maps, planning which part of the palace to visit next. Tour guides held up colorful umbrellas, leading their groups through the crowd while sharing interesting facts about the palace's history. Standing perfectly still at his post was the royal guard. His red uniform was spotless, every button shining in the sunlight. His black boots were polished so well you could see your reflection in them. The special rifle he held hadn't moved an inch in hours, that's how disciplined these guards are. Tourists were doing what they always do near the royal guards, taking selfies, trying to make them smile, and wondering how they could stand so still for so long. Little did they know, this ordinary tourist day was about to turn into something they would never forget. The peaceful atmosphere suddenly changed when people noticed a large man walking through the main gates. Even from far away, something about him made people nervous. He walked like someone looking for trouble, and trouble was exactly what he was about to find. This wasn't your typical tourist in shorts and a camera. This man wore a heavy leather jacket despite the warm weather. His boots made loud sounds against the stone path with each step he took. But what really caught everyone's attention was the metal chain hanging at his side, definitely not a regular tourist accessory. As he got closer to the palace grounds, people started moving out of his way. Parents pulled their children closer. Tour guides stopped their stories mid-sentence. Even the street vendors, who usually tried to sell to everyone, suddenly found other things to do. It was like watching a dark cloud move across a sunny sky. The royal guard stood at his post, same as always. But those who looked closely might have noticed something change in his eyes, not fear, but the kind of alertness that comes from years of military training. Behind that ceremonial uniform was a highly trained soldier, though the troublemaker heading his way was about to learn this lesson the hard way. The man walked straight toward the royal guard, acting like he owned the place. His chain made a scary clinking sound with each step. Up close, people could see his face better. He had an ugly smile that made everyone even more nervous. "Well, well, well," he said loudly, making sure everyone could hear him. "Look what we have here." A fancy-dressed soldier playing statue. His voice was rough, like someone used to giving orders and having people listen. The crowd grew larger now. Some people backed away, but many pulled out their phones to record what was happening. They knew something big was about to happen, even if they wished it wouldn't. "You know what I think," the man continued, circling the guard like a shark. "I think all this fancy uniform stuff is just for show. Where I come from, we prove how tough we are." He yanked his chain, making it rattle loudly. The royal guard didn't move a muscle. His eyes stayed forward, his rifle perfectly still. This seemed to make the troublemaker even angrier. "Nothing to say," he taunted, getting closer. "That's okay. Maybe we need to make things more interesting." He started swinging the chain slowly at his side, letting it brush against the ground. Some brave tourist tried to speak up. "Leave him alone." But the man just laughed, a sound that made everyone's skin crawl. "You see all these people watching," he said to the guard. "They're about to learn what happens when someone like me meets someone like you. All that training, all that standing still, let's see how much it helps you when things get real." Two older men in the crowd, probably ex-military from the way they stood, watched carefully. They could tell this wasn't just another tourist trying to make the guard move. This was different. This was dangerous. The chain started moving faster now, making a whistling sound through the air. The man's fake smile had turned into something uglier. "Last chance, soldier boy," he growled. "Show me something real, or I'm going to have to show you what real power looks like." Without warning, the man's face twisted with anger. He grabbed the chain with both hands and swung it high over his head. "Time's up," he shouted. The crowd gasped. Some people screamed. Phones kept recording as the heavy metal chain came slicing through the air, heading straight for the guard's head. The troublemaker's face showed pure evil now. He thought he had won. But everyone was about to learn why you never underestimate a royal guard. In a move so fast it seemed impossible, the guard's white-gloved hand shot up. He caught the chain mid-swing, like grabbing a snake right out of the air. The sound of metal hitting his glove echoed across the palace grounds. For a split second, everything went quiet. The man's face changed from angry to shocked. His mouth hung open, not believing what just happened. The chain that was supposed to hurt the guard now hung useless between them. But the guard wasn't finished. In one smooth movement, he yanked the chain hard. The tough guy, still holding the other end, stumbled forward like a clumsy puppet. His big boots couldn't keep him balanced anymore. "What the?" was all he could say before the guard moved again. Years of special forces training came to life as the guard twisted the chain around the attacker's arm. Now the man's own weapon was being used against him. The guard's movements were perfect, no wasted energy, no showing off. This wasn't some movie fight scene. This was real military training in action. With just a few precise moves, he had the troublemaker on his knees. 8 years special forces, the guard spoke for the first time. His voice was calm, like he was discussing the weather. The uniform might be ceremonial, but the training isn't. He adjusted his grip slightly, making the man wince. The crowd watched in amazement. The same guard who had stood perfectly still for hours was now controlling a dangerous attacker like it was nothing. His ceremonial rifle stayed perfectly positioned in his other hand. He hadn't even needed to put it down. "Please." The man started to beg, all his tough guy act gone. The chain that was supposed to show his power now wrapped around his arm, teaching him a painful lesson about real strength. "The thing about real combat training," the guard continued, still perfectly calm, "is that it teaches you the difference between looking dangerous and being dangerous." Another small adjustment of the chain made the man gasp. 2 police officers pushed through the crowd, moving quickly but carefully. They could see the situation was under control, thanks to the guard's professional handling. "This man attacked a member of the Queen's Guard with a deadly weapon," the guard reported calmly. His voice stayed steady, like he was giving a normal report. "The security cameras caught everything, and you have plenty of witnesses." He glanced at the crowd, where dozens of phones were still recording. The police moved in with their handcuffs. The troublemaker didn't resist anymore, the fight had completely left him. His leather jacket, which had looked so scary before, now hung loose and pathetic. Sweat dripped down his face, and his tough guy smile was long gone. Before the police led him away, the guard had one final message. "Next time you mistake ceremony for weakness," he said, looking the man straight in the eyes, "remember this moment. We stand still not because we're weak, but because we're disciplined. And discipline is what makes us dangerous." The crowd broke into applause as the police took the man away. Parents were now explaining to their children why you should never judge someone by how they look. Young kids pointed at the guard with new respect in their eyes, understanding that sometimes the quietest people are the strongest. "That chain's going into evidence," one officer said, picking up the weapon that had caused all the trouble. "Along with about 50 videos from witnesses." He nodded respectfully to the guard. Once the police car drove away, the guard returned to his post. His uniform was still perfectly clean, not a button out of place. He stood exactly as he had before, straight and proud. But now everyone watching knew the truth. Behind that ceremonial uniform stood a highly trained warrior, ready to protect at a moment's notice. The afternoon sun continued to shine on Buckingham Palace. Tourists went back to taking pictures, but now they kept a respectful distance. Every once in a while, someone would whisper the story to a new visitor. "See that guard? Let me tell you what I just saw him do." What happened that day at Buckingham Palace taught everyone a powerful lesson. Just because someone stands still and looks ceremonial, doesn't mean they're not ready for action. These royal guards might wear fancy uniforms, but they're among the best trained soldiers in the world. The metal chain that was meant to cause harm now sits in a police evidence room. It's a reminder that real strength isn't about showing off or making threats. True power comes from discipline, training, and knowing when to act. Many tourists visit Buckingham Palace every day. Most of them try to make the guards smile or move. Some even think these guards are just there for show. But this incident proved why these posts are protected by real warriors, not just ceremonial figures. Each royal guard has gone through years of intense military training. They can switch from standing still to combat mode in less than a second. Their perfect uniforms and ceremonial rifles might look like a tourist attraction, but behind that tradition stands a highly trained soldier. The man with the chain learned this lesson the hard way. He came looking for an easy target but found a special forces veteran instead. His story now serves as a warning to anyone who might mistake ceremony for weakness. If you enjoyed this incredible story of justice served, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to our channel. We bring you the most amazing and powerful stories that show why these guards command respect worldwide. Don't forget to hit the bell icon so you never miss our latest uploads. What would you have done if you were in the crowd that day? Would you have recognized the danger signs early, or would you have thought it was just another tourist causing trouble? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Have you ever witnessed a moment where someone learned not to judge by appearances? Or maybe you've seen the royal guards in action yourself. We'd love to hear your stories and experiences. Remember, sometimes the most dangerous people aren't the ones making threats, they're the ones disciplined enough to stand perfectly still until action is necessary.